Hello everyone, I'm Joseph Dinesh, a Catholic commentator from Sydney, Australia. In today's video, we will analyze the long-awaited Vatican Statement regarding the mockery of Last Supper during the Olympics opening ceremony. One line that really caught my attention was this. The statement said, "Freedom of expression, which is obviously not called into question, finds its limit in respect for others." This stood out to me because I am a strong proponent of freedom of expression in all its forms, whether it's speech, art, or writing. For many years, I have heard from conservative commentators that freedom of speech and expression is an absolute right, regardless of whether people feel disrespected or offended by it. So I was quite surprised to see the same commentators criticizing the drag queens and transgenders for representing what they believe to be the truth, essentially saying they don't have the freedom of expression to mock Christianity. That seems like a double standard, isn't it? Or is it? We are going to explore this conundrum in today's video. Let's start by reading the statement from Vatican. The Holy See said in a brief statement emailed to journalists in French that it was saddened by certain scenes at the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympic Games and cannot but join the voices raised in recent days to deplore the offense done to many Christians and believers of other religions. In a prestigious event where the whole world comes together around common values, there should not be allusions ridiculing the religious convictions of many people. The statement continued, the controversial scene, part of the €1.5 billion spectacle to kick off the 2024 Summer Olympics, featured drag queens portraying the apostles and a self-proclaimed lesbian DJ as Jesus in what appeared to be part of a fashion show, apparently mocking Leonardo da Vinci's famous painting. Finally, it said, freedom of expression, which is obviously not called into question, finds its limit in respect for others, the Holy See concluded. So restating the question we are trying to answer, is the right to freedom of expression absolute, meaning it should never be limited, or is it a fundamental right subject to limitations? Well, as Catholics, we would really want to know what the Church has to say about this, isn't it? The Church upholds that while freedom of expression is a fundamental human right rooted in the inherent dignity of the human person, it is not an absolute right due to the fallen nature of humanity. This freedom can be misused, potentially harming oneself, others, and society as a whole. Therefore, it must be exercised within the bounds of moral, legal, and ethical guidelines. This understanding is particularly timely for me personally because I used to believe that freedom of speech was an absolute right and everyone should have the right to say whatever they want, whenever they want, and wherever they want. It never occurred to me that some might abuse this freedom. I allowed a certain family acquaintance the unrestricted right to express their thoughts, and to my utter disappointment, that person not only hurt me but also insulted me. That's when I began to seriously reconsider this topic and was pleasantly surprised to see the phrase freedom of expression in the Vatican Statement. I have now learned that while the right to free speech is fundamental, it is not absolute. We cannot afford to grant this right to someone who has abused it or whom we know will abuse it, because there is no point in lamenting once the damage is done. So let's analyze the Olympic mockery of Christians within the moral, legal, and ethical frameworks to figure out if it was an abuse and the ways through which we can take action against what has happened and prevent this from happening again. So let's analyze the Olympic mockery of Christians within the moral, legal, and ethical framework to figure if it was an abuse and the ways through which we can take action against what has happened and prevent this from happening again. Some of the moral limitations that the Church puts forth are: speech cannot be disrespectful, meaning it should not mock, insult, or offend another person. It should not incite hatred, violence, spread falsehoods, or cause division. Based on these limitations, it is clear that the mockery of Christians or any other religion does not abide by the moral framework, and it can be clearly defined as abuse. However, since the Olympic Committee is a secular organization, it falls outside the Church's jurisdiction to take direct action. But as Christians, we can continue to raise our voices and protest as we have been doing in recent weeks. Now, just because something is immoral does not mean it's illegal. Therefore, let's examine whether this act violates any legal limitations set by the government. Some of the legal limitations are: speech that incites imminent lawless action or violence is not protected. Obscene material defined by community standards is not protected. Defamatory statements that harm the reputation of another person is not protected. Commercial speech which is misleading or deceptive is not protected. Applying these limitations, it appears that mockery is still legally protected speech, and as Christians, we cannot take any legal action against the Olympics Committee. Even if a lawyer in France were to find a way to make a case, it would likely be thrown out even by the most conservative judge. However, just because we cannot pursue legal action does not mean the Olympic Committee as an organization cannot take internal action. Because there is another type of limitation called ethical limitation. Let's see what that entails. The ethical limitations state, speech can be limited by societal expectations and cultural norms. Even if legally permissible, certain expressions might be socially unacceptable or frowned upon due to the cultural sensitivities and traditions. In professional settings, freedom of speech can be limited by workplace policies and professional standards. This includes codes of conduct, confidentiality agreements, and policies against harassment or discrimination. Applying these principles, the mockery of Christians violates one of the mission statements of the International Olympic Committee, which is to act against any form of discrimination affecting the Olympic movement. This means the IOC, as a professional organization, should take internal action against the organizers of the Paris Olympics for allowing such blatant discrimination against Christians. Doesn't mocking Christianity negatively impact the Olympic movement? Imagine if all Christian athletes decided to withdraw from the competition. Would the Olympics still be considered a success? Well, to summarize, even though the Olympic ceremony is an abuse of the freedom of expression, there is no legal basis to prosecute the Olympic Committee. However, internal actions within the committee can be taken if there is a will among Christian leaders present in it. In conclusion, if we want to live in a healthy country, society, or family, all forms of freedom must be regulated, limited to prevent abuse and maintain harmony. I hope this video was helpful. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. God bless you.